We have a member here, Ann Rogers. Why don't you come on up? And let's make sure. There you go. Welcome, Ann Rogers. So, Ann, why don't you to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I got to give Ann a microphone. Hello. Oh, that's perfect. So you got to hold this up real close. Okay. We're going to do a rap battle first. Ready? You be Biggie Smalls, and I'll be Tupac. Go.
Not on your life. Well, I'm kind of a computer nerd. I've been in computers and security for quite a few years. And so I was just in the workforce the same way. My husband and I both were pretty frugal. We were both Air Force veterans. And when I started hearing Dell on the radio, I said, that kind of sounds weird. But I knew that I didn't want to keep working all the time and in the corporate environment. So I just took a chance and came in here and listened to the 2-day, and it just blew me away. It just made so much sense to me because, like I said, I do a lot of numbers and project management and things like that. And every time I looked at it, I said, man, why didn't I think it that way before? I never thought about real estate before. So it made an impression on me. And so I went ahead and joined.
And when was that?
That was in 2015.
2015.
And actually, when I jumped in and I started taking a lot of the lessons and started doing the online, I thought I was going to really get into it really quick. At the time, I was working as a consultant, and a couple of friends of mine that were colleagues left the business that they were in and came and strong-armed me and said, we need to start our own business. So I got this screeching halt for about 2 years, and we started our own consulting business, and I'm still in that as a partner. But then I got thinking, why am I still doing it this way? I want to get back into real estate. And so I came back and got active again and started going for things and got into one passive deal, and then ended up going on a road trip for single families and saw one and ended up drawing the number out of the hat and got my first single family and got addicted to that.
So we're going to be presenting your fifth property.
That's right.
So your first property was when? 2015?
That was 2018. Yeah.
Okay, so you joined in 2015, and your first property is 2018.
Yeah, my first multifamily was in 2017. My first single family was in 2018.
Okay, awesome. Very good. So let's talk about this property. This is some before and after. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here?
This was one on a little blast, and I have to tell you that I work with Jennifer watching everything she's got, and I really appreciate her. Anyway, I jumped in on this, and I wasn't first in line on this one. I tagged it and went and walked the property first, and I really thought that number one person was going to take it because I walked through this property and started looking at it. Well, I really want this one. This was a really nice old house. It has a lot of really good bones to it, but they had a freeze that busted water pipes and wrecked a lot of things. Ceilings fell and all the carpets were out and stuff was piled.
Referring to the freeze that was in February of this year?
That's right. It was the February freeze. It broke the pipes in this house. And so it looked a mess, and I think it scared the first person off. I don't think she was an investor yet. So when we walked through and did the preliminary, JR was the inspector walking through there, and I kept walking by his arm saying, I don't know, I think she's going to take it. But anyway, turns out Jennifer said, no, she didn't. So I grabbed it. And the first thing I saw here was just opportunity. It looked really messy and everything, but as I walked the house, I was impressed with what it had for structure and what we could do with it. After rehabbing a few, you see the potential.
It looks like a brand new house.
It really looks nice now, yeah. This is a picture of what the master bathroom looked like. It was a little bit of a mess. The tub was really bad, and it was not well taken care of at the time. This was an owner that had the house for a long time. I think she's a widow. And she just couldn't handle the house. And I think her family told her, you don't need to go through rehab of this stuff, move. So that's how this opportunity came in. But I looked at this and said, wow, we can really spruce that up very well. They had started doing some rehab on the main bathroom, and once they started doing that, I could see what the potential was.
Did the broken pipes affect the whole house?
The broken pipes, yeah, it actually broke and flooded all through the bedrooms. So all the carpets were a mess, and it broke down the ceilings. It really messed up in the garage. I mean, there's a lot of damage that had to be fixed. But it was all kind of superficial damage that I knew we could fix really well.
Cool. Well, so let's take a look at the numbers here.
Okay.
So you purchased for 106,000. It appraised for 165. So that gave you an equity of 59,000 to work with.
Right.
Then after closing costs and rehab, you were left with about 13,400 or so in captured equity. Your cash out of pocket was 22,000, which is about 10,000 less than what the typical deal in Houston is right now.
Right.
For a 59% return on capital gain the day you closed.
Right.
So
Did you hear how excited they were about that? That's how excited conservative people go. 59%.
I know, only 59%. Only 59.
Well, I have to tell you a story. It would have even been better. Let me just kind of back up, because when we looked at the rehab originally, and Jennifer does a good job of estimating it, we went through the house and it was almost $1,000 less than that by the time we worked out the pieces. But one of the things I noticed after walking in the yard is the electrical service line that comes to the house ran to the eaves, and it was strung underneath a big old tree limb. And that was a huge tree limb that was hanging out there. And I thought, oh my gosh, first big wind, we're going to lose electric to the house. So I got a hold of one of my tree guys and said, I want you to trim these trees back really heavy. And he did. He took that whole limb off. Ida came, and I was so glad I had done that. So I spent a little bit extra on the rehab there because I went and actually cleaned up the yard and trees that I knew could potentially cause damage. So it would have looked even a little better on that before.
It would have been like a 62% return.
Yeah.
But the message is fix everything. When you before you get a tenant in there, fix everything, and that's the Lifestyles model. That's what Dave goes over on the Saturday 2-day. So that's great. It worked out. It positioned you perfectly because the storm did come through. So just to finish out, so you had a 18% cash on cash return, 59% return on capital gain. Those returns are right in line with the median deal that we're seeing in Houston. So this is just a solid.
Again, how excited you guys are.
Well,
Guys, could you imagine investing in a CD that pays 18% a year tax-free? Who'd be okay with that? You'd have to go back when Jimmy Carter was president to make that kind of money. Am I right? And now it could get that way with Biden, but I'm just saying. I mean, give her a hand. That's a huge number.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you get used to seeing these numbers, and it's like, Jeff pulls these numbers together every month, and it's like, oh, okay, that's about the median, So again, this is her fifth deal. So here you've been busy for 3-4 years, and you've added $24,000, almost $25,000 a year to your income, tax free, and you've increased your net worth by $161,000.
That's right.
In 3 years. Can your job do that?
How many would like a $25,000 raise? She gave it to herself, no boss. Awesome job. That's something to be proud of. And it's all tax-free, so that's like 35, 40 grand if you think about it, right?
So pretty soon I'm going to stop being a consultant and be even better. Won't pay any tax.
There you go.
So describe real quick the difference between doing your first property and your fifth property.
My first property, I was really tentative about it. I mean, I probably followed Jennifer around on her arm the whole time looking at it. And it was a little bit beat up, but it wasn't quite a bad rehab as this other one. And I was a little nervous, but I figured it made sense. I was going to try it. And I just went with the mentors. Elizabeth Bruce at the time was a mentor for that one. And went with Jennifer, and we got it done and got a renter in there right away.
Is Jennifer here tonight?
Yeah.
Right over here.
Jennifer, come up here real quick. I just want people to see one of my best agents. Would you all want to see? Is it okay, Jennifer? You want to get on camera?
Yeah, come on up,
I guess
Jennifer.
I shouldn't just volunteer people. This is one of our superstars. Jennifer, what place were you? Weren't you like the top 10 of realtors in Houston?
I think it was 9 last year.
There you
Give
go.
her a hand. Number 9 of all those realtors out there. It's huge. And that's the guy selling $1 million houses. She's 9th. On these little cheap.
And that's not a one-off. I mean, she's there in that area a lot. Number 11th, number 10th, number 9.
So basically what happened in my first house, I was pretty tentative, and it wasn't too bad of a rehab. And when it got through, I thought, whoa, that wasn't that hard. Looked at the next one, and it needed about the same or a little bit more rehab. And what I found is every time you do it, it gets easier. My Lerner house was a total wreck. It had been all messed up, and they had added on the back, but they had no sheetrock for like 5 feet up in the back, and a wall through the middle of the add-on, and it was really interesting.
Now, really quick for the new people, how much of that work did you do yourself? Were you out there with a hammer and nails?
No, not on that one.
Well, you wrote a check though, right? I just want the new people to understand that we pay the contractors to do the work. We're
I'm a
not.
little bit different than the normal person
Oh,
because
okay.
I enjoy doing this. I
Okay.
like to go look and tweak and figure out what to do. But no, I didn't do a lot of that work myself.
Oh,
Very good. So how's it changed your life?
Well, it's changed my life because I really do believe in the multiple streams of income and the fact that the passive investments really pay off a whole lot better than trying to use a stock market or anything. And I like to see the houses go from really crummy looking places to really nice places and getting a tenant in that really appreciates it. So I'll probably stick with the single families for a while, but I've actually done a lot of multifamily investment as well because that's easier.
that's just boring getting a check and not having to do anything. Am I right?
Well, you know, the single family houses give you cash flow right away.
Yeah, you don't have to
The
wait.
multifamilies, you know, it takes a little while till they get them started rehab and then they come in quarterly. So I use the mix of that to just be able to do it. I will tell you that I put a chunk of money in a bank account and said, I'm going to use that for single families. And then I invested it and it just keeps adding it back in.
Yep.
So I'm at like 70% of what I started out with in that little investment account. So I might roll it into another one if a good one comes along.
Yeah, it's addictive, isn't it? It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Enjoying it
really turn
sounds
out
like. Yeah,
nice.
good.
Yeah, you'll need to keep the single families around just because multifamily is too boring.
No, they're fun too, because I've had a couple
Yeah,
of good multifamily people.
So Evelina Romland, she was your mentor before, but she's taken the next step in the real estate journey. She's now a lead partner in multifamily,
And she's from Sweden.
and she's from East Texas.
And then, of course, Jennifer was my realtor. And then I used Noble Mortgage, and I've worked with Chris Moore at Noble on a couple of rehabs or refinances.
JR from Marispec, he was
JR,
earlier.
yeah, he's
I don't know.
been inspector on a couple of my houses, more than a couple. Grautex did the foundation. I needed a little bit of piers along one side where it's an older house and it had sunk a little bit. And Longhorn Home Solutions did a fantastic job. Brandon Escobar really did a nice job on it.
Yeah.
So I was very happy with everything on this house.
So it really is about building your team and pulling it all together and building that rapport and then just rinsing and repeating, right?
Right.
So what's next?
Well, I might pick up one more single family depending on how things work. And then I'm going to continue passive investment because of the fact that money sitting in my 401k or money sitting in the bank was earning nothing. And I've seen some really good ones. I've also made good friends and met a lot of good leads and kind of learned a little bit more about how to pick property locations, figure out what I think is good. And I really want to teach my granddaughter, to get interested in real estate because I think it really is a good opportunity for her to see that part. She's kind of a computer artist nerd right now too, so I'm working on that.
So it really does give you the chance to build
Yeah.
a legacy for your
And it, as it turned out, a couple of years after I was in Lifestyles, I ended up dragging my brothers in and had them sitting through it. So they're now in on it, investing too. So that's very nice. Made it a family deal.
Awesome. You contributed to the cult.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's the end of our. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, any
for
questions,
Ann?
guys? And thank you so much for giving back. Give her a hand for doing it. I appreciate that. Awesome. Anybody, any online questions, David? Or yeah, anybody in the room want to ask a question? There's one back there.
And there.
Please grab a microphone. You can keep that one. I'll grab this one. Now I'm getting my exercise, and I'm pretty lazy. So, now Jacob comes up.
How much of a factor is the school district in leasing the property?
Great question.
It really depends on the property and it depends on the tenants you get. I will tell you on this one, I was just really lucky. I had a person that I was going to go look for a tenant because I didn't want to have to handle that. I did that on 2 of my properties. I said,
Do you want me to tell you the truth? It doesn't matter. People live in a certain neighborhood because their job's near it, the school's near it. How we shop, rich people like us, we look in the suburbs that way. This is middle-class workforce housing, school district. And now it's the worst one in town, of course not, but we're buying middle-class neighborhoods.
I'm going to
You know
tell
what I
you
mean?
right now also, with COVID, people are doing homeschooling.
Yeah.
And my tenants homeschooling their kids. So it doesn't matter.
So really school district doesn't matter. It's not a big factor. Just like The house at the end of a cul-de-sac, none of that stuff matters. Not for rentals. But it's a great question.
I haven't bought a house yet, but out of pocket higher costs scare me. But how do you get past that of the out of pocket being higher than you think you want to spend, even though the return may be better later? But how do you get past that hurdle of that out of pocket being a little bit higher?
So we say an average deal is like 30K. If you're right in that 30K range, it's a good deal. Don't try to look for the golden unicorn that's 5K out of pocket. If it's 30, 35, 32, 28, it's in that range. What's your rate of return? What you really have to look at is this. Compare it to what you're making now. You work for, let's say, a news agency, and you're making 4% in your IRA. If you can make a 14% return, cash on cash, tax-free, and a 50% return, is that a little bit better than what your 4% is? Take out your emotions. Make business decisions.
And I was at the point where, like I said, I locked in some funds that I wanted to invest in single families. So I took out of there and I'd look at the numbers. If they made sense and I had my money to start with, I'd do that. Because one of the things that you have to be careful of when you first get into a property, even when you're doing your hard money loan, they're going to withhold some money on the contract until you start doing your rehab, and then you draw, right? So you have to know you got a little bit of a fudge factor there to be able to do that. The end out of pocket looks great. You had some upfront that you had to put in there. But I looked at that and said, that's what I'm going to do. And then I know that the cash flows are going back into that account. So every time I have my cash flow coming in from each monthly, it's building that account again. I can go do another property.
Yeah, and just so you know, when we do a rehab budget, let's say we think it's 30 grand. I always add an extra 10%. Why? Because there is what ifs that can happen. So if it's 30, I'll put 33 just to be safe. I don't know how you're doing it, but that's what I always recommend.
I also negotiate with my rehab guys. Like we walked this property and originally they were going to go in and take out all the backsplash, which was, I don't think you put a photo in on that, but it had really nice ornate tile in the back. And I looked at it and said, why tear all that out? Instead of putting backsplash, keep that. And we just picked a color of the granite that worked well with it. So you can find little things like that. They were going to do pull all the cabinets down in the bathrooms. Well, this had mirrored little cabinets. I said, let's not do that. Let's fix the hinges on that one. I'll keep that. And it has a little extra look to it, right?
Yeah, sometimes just hardware makes a big difference. Yeah.
And they were really worried about the AC units. As I walked through there after having a AC unit that had problems in another property, I looked at this one and it checked out really well, but they had this kind of strange thing. There was a window unit hanging out of one of the bedrooms. And I walked back there when we were testing the AC, there was nothing much coming out of there. So I told my rehab guy, I want you to replace the duct vent to that room. I fixed everything, pulled that window unit out and everything. So you learn these little tricks as you go through, and it's great.
Yeah, and each time you get more experience, more comfortable each time.
Oh. And I like doing it, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, she was up there crawling through the attic.
No, I let JR do that.
Awesome. One more? Okay.
So you said your first house was 2018. So will you be selling these houses here before long?
I might. I'm trying to decide whether I want to do that. One thing that happened on that first house is I had a really good price on my original one, so I had a good tax break. This year they almost tripled the value on the house for property taxes. So I may end up going ahead and selling that one and roll it to something.
Yeah, really, it's really horrible when your houses go up all this money and you make 3 times what you thought. I mean, that's a horrible problem to have.
The property tax goes up, it makes you mad, but I might turn that one. And there's one other, the one that was really a mess that I told you about that looks really nice now. I think next year I might turn that one for another.
So what she's saying is the numbers will tell the story. She's going to reevaluate them at the time and say, do I let go? Do I keep it?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and we mentioned we get calls all the time to
Yeah.
help the member, look at it objectively and look at the numbers and say, does it make sense? Is it aligned with your goals?
Yeah, I always tell members, hey, if you have mentors, talk to them once a year. Have a sanity check. Should I move on? Should I keep it? There's numbers we have. We don't have emotions. Doug doesn't get anything out of looking at her portfolio, but she gets huge gains because having that extra person, that sanity check, there's no emotions inside.
And sometimes you kind of sort of know what the answer is, but you talk to the mentor and they said, well, are you willing to, push more money into it or just take the different margin and not have so much out of pocket in it?
Yeah, sometimes it's okay. It's tired. It's time to let go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Awesome. All
I
right.
think that's it.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving back. Thanks for sharing your story.